You know those moments in Formula One when everything seems under control, until it suddenly isn't? That was Imola. The race looked settled. Ferrari seemed to have things in hand. And then, boom, a safety car changed everything. In seconds, strategies were flipped upside down, tire plans were shattered, and inside the Ferrari garage, chaos. You could feel it. But what really lit a fire under all this was a radio message that didn't even make it to the TV broadcast. It leaked afterward, a message from Charles Leclerc, and it revealed one of the most tense moments of the entire race weekend. Just 4 words, but they hit like a sledgehammer. I don't care. That was Leclerc's response after hearing that Hamilton didn't want to pit. And yeah, those 4 words alone already tell you something's not right inside Ferrari. But the full story? It's way deeper. It's not just about strategy or tire choices. It's about doubt, miscommunication, frustration, and a growing tension between teammates that Ferrari either can't control or doesn't want to acknowledge. So let's break it all down. Because this wasn't just some simple misunderstanding. This was a moment that peeled back the curtain and exposed everything Ferrari's been trying to hold together. Imola was cruising along with a pretty standard script until that safety car came out. 17 laps to go, and suddenly the strategy that teams had spent the entire race building got tossed out the window. Now it was all about making a split-second call, pit or stay out. At Ferrari, both cars were already running used tires. No fresh mediums, no new hards, just a set of softs left for Leclerc. But were those softs good enough to go the distance? That was the big question, and it was a risky move either way. That's when the back and forth started between Leclerc and his engineer, Brian Bozzi. Charles told them straight, he had no grip left. He wanted to pit. Brian hesitated. "We don't have a tire that can make it to the end," he said. Leclerc pushed back. "The softs are better than this," he snapped. And while that was going on the other side of the garage, Hamilton was talking to his engineer, Riccardo Adami. "The tires feel fine, but there's still a lot of racing left," Lewis said. He wasn't sure either. He asked how many positions he'd lose if he pitted. The answer? 3. And then here's the moment that changed everything. The team told Leclerc, "Hamilton doesn't want to stop, just so you know." And Charles? He didn't miss a beat. He fired back, cold as ice. "I don't care." It hit like a bullet. No emotion, no hesitation, just raw frustration. And you could hear it in his voice. He wasn't just disagreeing. He was done. Done with being dragged into someone else's strategy. Done with having his decisions influenced by what Hamilton wanted. It was a sharp, clear message. Stop managing me based on him. At that point, it became obvious that Leclerc was fighting 2 battles. One against the tires, and another against his own team's indecision. He knew the mediums were finished. The data was clear. There were still 17 laps left. That's a long time on dead tires. He wasn't just thinking about degradation. He was thinking about being a sitting duck, vulnerable, easy to overtake. And while all that pressure was building, the team still couldn't decide. "Just tell me what the best tire is. These are gone," he snapped. The tone wasn't angry. It was tired. Tired of waiting. Tired of hearing the same hesitations. Bozzi tried to stay calm, tried to walk through the options, but there weren't many. The mediums were 11 laps old. No new hards. The softs were risky. But Leclerc had made up his mind. These won't survive the restart. Give me the softs. He was clear. He was ready to take the risk. But right when he was coming into the pits, he saw Hamilton ahead of him diving in. And that's when everything unraveled. Why didn't I stop? And Lewis did? That moment said it all. Ferrari's strategy had collapsed. Whatever joint plan there was, it wasn't shared between the 2 drivers. The communication failed. And when the team finally told Leclerc to stay out, his response was cutting. Oh, of course. Cold, flat, defeated. That wasn't a reaction to tire choices. That was a driver losing faith. It wasn't a miscalculation. It was a breakdown. A breakdown in coordination, in leadership, and most importantly, in trust. You could hear it in every second of that radio conversation. Leclerc didn't just disagree with the team. He no longer believed they were on the same page. And more than that, he didn't want to be part of a strategy that revolved around Hamilton's decisions. "I don't care" wasn't just about one pit stop. It was a bigger statement, a cry for autonomy, a demand to be treated as his own driver, not as someone orbiting around Lewis. And the aftermath? It spoke volumes. Hamilton made the stop, he took the risk, and it paid off. He came back on fresh tires, drove hard, passed competitors, and finished fourth. Leclerc, he stayed out on worn mediums. The team hesitated, then overruled him, then second-guessed everything. He got stuck in no man's land, not fast enough to attack, not protected enough to defend. He faded and finished sixth. Same team, same moment, two completely different outcomes. But more important than the result was the feeling left behind. Leclerc looked alone, not because he didn't have a teammate, but because he didn't feel like part of a team anymore. And if you've been following Ferrari closely, this isn't the first time we've seen that kind of disconnect. What we heard on that radio wasn't just frustration, it was alienation. Leclerc wasn't angry, he was distant, cold, calculated, as if he was mentally checking out of the process. "We're talking about ourselves," he said when asked about Hamilton's choice. That's not how teammates talk. That's how competitors talk. It's subtle, but it's telling. Charles doesn't want to base his decisions on what Lewis does. He wants full control. And maybe that wouldn't be a problem if Ferrari had a clear leadership structure. But they don't. That's the heart of it. Hamilton was trusted. He said what he wanted, and he got it. Leclerc was questioned, challenged, denied, and then left stranded. The contrast was obvious, and not just to fans. Inside the paddock, people started asking the same questions. Is Ferrari picking a side? Is there a hidden priority here? And more importantly, does Leclerc still trust the team? Based on what we saw in Imola, that trust is slipping. After the race, Charles didn't say much. His face said enough. He looked disappointed. He didn't defend the decisions. He didn't sugarcoat anything. And out on track, the result reflected it. He wasn't fighting. He was just finishing. Meanwhile, Hamilton, who had started behind him, was flying. The gap between them wasn't just about performance. It was about clarity, confidence, belief in the plan. And that, right there, is the real takeaway from Imola. Not tire strategy, not pit lane timing, but the erosion of trust between Leclerc and the Ferrari system. And when that starts to go, no car is fast enough to fix it. What happened at Imola wasn't a one-off. It was a warning, a quiet but clear alarm bell. Ferrari's internal disorganization is already costing them. And if they don't fix it soon, it could spiral into something even worse. Because this wasn't just a tactical disagreement. It was a symptom of something deeper, a lack of leadership, a lack of direction. Both drivers had doubts, both were unsure, but only one was empowered to act. And the other, he was left waiting, guessing, and in the end, watching. Leclerc felt ignored. Hamilton took control. And Ferrari, they just stood in the middle, frozen. This isn't about rivalry, it's about structure. If Ferrari can't give their drivers a unified plan, then both of them will start acting independently. And in a team that's always been about discipline and unity, that's the first crack in the wall. The radio told us everything. Leclerc didn't care about Hamilton's strategy, and Ferrari didn't know how to respond. If they want to fight for wins, let alone titles, they need more than aero updates and simulations. They need direction. They need leadership. Because what we saw in Imola, that's not sustainable. Not across a full season. Hamilton is already showing natural leadership. Leclerc is demanding freedom. And if Ferrari doesn't decide who leads or how they lead, these two are going to end up pulling in different directions. The only real question now is, how long can this go on? Because if Ferrari wants to challenge Red Bull, McLaren, or even Mercedes, they need to sort out what's happening inside their own garage. And they need to do it fast. So, what do you think? Did Ferrari let Leclerc down? Should Hamilton have followed a joint plan? Or is this just the beginning of an internal battle that's about to explode?